I'd like to welcome you to my little blog here. And today I'm going to cover two areas of concern for myself. This is going to be related to my training and my past experience with the San Bernardino County Ombudsman's Office. And I'm also going to tackle some opinion and some advice I have for the San Bernardino and Riverside County Sheriff's Office regarding the handling of our population out there, making contact with the general public, and I hope that you are receptive to this little bit of training that I have to offer. Let's start first with a little bit about myself. I retired from the Riverside County Sheriff's Department around 2005, and I had some experience dealing with our elderly population and some training in elder abuse. But for the most part, that training came through my experience with my own mother being a resident of a skilled nursing facility for 11 years. And during the last 3 years of her stay there, I was a member of the San Bernardino County Ombudsman's Office. Just a little background is that office was tasked with the state mandate of investigating crimes and misdeeds inside such facilities as that in any residential care facility. And during that time, I must have filed over 1,000 complaints with the state regarding care at these facilities, of which not one until recently after I resigned from my post was one of those complaints validated by the state and found to have merit. I found that very hard as in law enforcement. If I would have presented the district attorney with that many cases and not one of them found to have any merit, I would have thought something's wrong and probably would have been relieved of my position. But that's just to give you a little update on what's going on in our nursing care. Through the Public Guardian's Office, it was tasked with our elderly and our disabled that don't have any family members or a responsible party to take care of their affairs. And there's so much abuse in these areas. I want to bring this attention to the Sheriff's Department. As I don't feel that the county office of the Ombudsman's Office, which in San Bernardino County and Riverside County are currently held, and the mandate is fulfilled by a private agency. So you can only imagine that the private agency doesn't have as much scrutiny as the county would have had, and yet very little is being done to protect our residents in such facilities. And the abuse of the Public Guardian's Office has been publicized in many articles of the paper. So I would like to present myself to the Sheriff's Department, both Riverside and San Bernardino County, to meet with the sheriff of both counties and have an opportunity, an audience with them, to give them an idea of what I can suggest that their office, which I feel has more empowerment to enforce the laws and statutes of the state, to see more things done to help the residents of such facilities in our counties. And that's one aspect of this video. The other I want to touch on briefly is that we have many officers out there I'm seeing, unfortunately, being arrested for crimes that are being committed against the public. I don't feel that the legal representation is being fulfilled, but more importantly, the reason I want to come before both the Riverside and San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office and both the line staff is to give them some suggestions on how to handle these situations that they're becoming more and more involved in on the streets. I think somebody we have a lot of new officers out there, and I feel sometimes they don't feel that they don't have enough tools in their belt, and I speak not literally, but the fact that sometimes they feel an arrest is imminent, that they have to take action. And I want the Sheriff's Department in both San Bernardino and Riverside County to understand, and the line staff, deputies and officers and detectives alike, that through my experience, and I'll give one incident in general. When I was responding to a family incident in the city of Hemet, the county area of Hemet, we had a family member, an older 30-year-old male, was inside the house threatening mother and father with violence, and he had a history of violence, and he barricaded himself in the house. We responded. My supervisor was in charge of the scene. The call went all the way up to the sheriff's office, the office of the sheriff himself, We went to our commanding lieutenant and then captain. The captain called the sheriff for some reason. And the sheriff's directive at that time was to ask the parents to step out of the house. We made that request, and the parents says, no, we're not coming out of the house, because if we do, you're going to come in and get the son, and he's going to be harmed. That information was relayed back to the sheriff, and the sheriff said, make that request one more time. I'm not going to mention the year of the sheriff that was involved in that incident, but the point was, the sheriff said, well, if they're not going to come out, then and they have the ability to come out. They weren't denying they had the ability to come out, but they decided to remain in the residence after wanting us to move into the house with them present. And the sheriff's response was, if they don't feel that threatened, we want you to clear the scene. Well, I was a young, I'd been out there a while, and I thought to myself, well, I'll surely be back to this house tonight. And to be honest with you, we never did return to that house. Never in the years following did we ever go back to that house. And I was astonished that we left that house under those situations, under those circumstances. And yet, I believe that was the most brilliant call ever, decision made by a sheriff. And that just gave me the input that I said to myself. And I'll give you one more incident. I was out working in a very rural area, and I came across a vehicle that had an unusual plate and tag on it. I was aware that there were some citizens out in the area that proclaimed their own sovereign nation type of deal, but I didn't know they had their own plates and so forth. I made contact, stopped the vehicle stopped. I contacted the driver, and he said he belonged to the sovereign nation and that they had their own vehicle code laws and so forth. And, I gathered as much information I can, and I knew right then and there he wasn't going to abide by, be writing him a citation for violation of registration code and so forth. So I gathered as much information I could that day. And it was a rural area, and he was just traveling down a dirt road, actually. And I thought, how important is it for me to get into a confrontation with this gentleman? We were conversing very, it was a very, intuitive conversation I had with him about his ideas and his sovereign nation idea. And I just let him go about his business. And this happened several times in rural areas where I realized I was a lone ranger, and my backup was pretty far away, and I made some bad decisions too, but I'm not trying to boast. But I'm just saying, I took some action that I could have taken the action of citing him, and when things went south, my backup was an hour away, and I thought, you know what, I gained some knowledge. I know who this gentleman is. What need would I have to write a ticket that probably just turned into a fine anyhow? Or I actually could have taken his vehicle at the time. But the point I'm trying to make here on this video is sometimes non-action is the action you got to take. I'm not trying to say, there was times that I felt that pursuing the investigation at a different time, a different situation, as long as no endangerment of the public, then I felt that sometimes was a better recourse. And I'm seeing a lot of officers today and deputies being fired and prosecuted for decisions that didn't have to turn that way. And I just want to offer my experience and my suggestions, which not only involve the tactical or practical measures that I took as law enforcement, but also some mindset that involves the fight or flight system that all of us have. And it can be controlled, believe it or not, and how they can control that so that they can deal with the more, not the primitive brain, but the sophisticated brain that God gives us and the information that's in there. When we go into that fight or flight, sometimes you notice that officers are offended easily. A lot of the physiological things that transpire is that the physical man becomes, the more primitive man comes out, and the logical brain starts to shut down. And these are some of the reasons I believe that, and also it has to do with prior training. If you're trained by somebody that has that concept, that's the reaction you're going to have. It's muscle memory, and sometimes that's what comes out. And again, man, I love law enforcement, and I love the people, and I love the service that they do, but I'm seeing it more and more myself. I'm seeing there's a separation between our lawmen and the general public. So I'm offering to the Sheriff's Department of both Riverside and San Bernardino County, I would like to have an audience with both sheriffs. I wouldn't take up more than 30 minutes of your time with a good presentation of what I have to offer. And I just thank you if you took the time to watch this video. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And again, this is covering both two areas of my concerns, which is our elderly and disabled, what the sheriff's office can do a lot more effectively than the district attorney's office has attempted, and what the county has tried to mandate to have these departments that are very ineffective in pursuing the care of our elderly and seniors in these very expensive facilities. And this care is not very, it's a high cost to our taxpayers for the most part because it's paid through our Medi-Cal system. But I would like to see more responsibility and more action taken against people that are extremely have no care and no disregard for or no regard for our elderly and our disabled that are pretty much locked into these facilities, because care at home is not offered anymore as much as it used to. So I thank you for the time you allotted me here, and please feel free to call me. I'm going to provide a number, and that's 951-313-6816. And also you can reach me in my personal email, which is Ralph, R-A-L-P-H, B like in boy, Herrera, and that's H-E-R-R-E-R-A, so Ralph B. Herrera at MSN.com. Again, I just want like 30 to maybe the maximum 1 hour of your time to maybe, have the opportunity to give some training to some staff, line staff, and that so they have some options out there, because it's getting worse by the minute, and it just saddens me to see so many people losing careers and losing and being locked up for decisions I felt are caused by just the way that our body operates and the way our mind operates and training. Thank you, and God bless.